Great. Okay, so lovely to see you all again so soon after the last class. Yeah, we're in the last day of Tammuz. We are at the Petach. We are about to welcome the month of Av. As we know in Judaism, Sof Ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. The ending is in the beginning is in the end. And just as we're sort of wrapping up with Tammuz, we've already very much connected to the energy of Av. The 2 months are very connected. It's actually my grandmother's yahrzeit tonight. So I'm going to dedicate this class to her Aliyat Neshama. Her English name was Anne, and her Hebrew name is Chaya Rachel Bat Pesach. So may she have an Aliyat Neshama, and may her memory be blessed. May all of our grandmas be blessed wherever they are, and may the Neshamas join us in this space. And of course, I'm going to dedicate also to dear Kedem Sunrise Ben Shoshana Tzipora. You should have a Fuah Shlema, and we should just see so much revealed good in our lives in all the ways. And if you want to hold in mind anyone that you want to dedicate the class to, please do. Okay, let's jump in. Once again, it's been a journey preparing for this class. I think when you're striving to live aligned with the energy of the months, can't help but feel it in a very real way. At least that's my experience. And I was actually speaking to Malka Sima, I think it was already in Tammuz. I was like, thank God there was Sivan. There was Sivan that started us on this journey, because my Sivan felt just wonderful, and it was just such a gift, and all opportunities came to me, and it was all so obvious, and there was so little effort involved. It was just, a gift from above, and that's what Sivan was and is. Whereas in Tammuz, we've been really given the task of doing the work ourselves. It's an awakening from below that we've been engaged in this month. So it's really been our efforts. And now that we've come into Av, again, it's still in our hands, but the energy of Av is there's this duality that exists this month. So let's look, we're going to look at where we are in the calendar a little bit, just to get a sense of what the work is. So as we said, Sivan, we received the Torah, there was this gift from above. And in Tammuz, we've been doing the work of really trying to integrate the Torah, integrate the light, integrate the new consciousness, the new awareness into our day-to-day mundane lives. And now we're in the 5th month. And 5, the number 5, obviously we know that there's the 5 books of Moses, but 5 also alludes to the 5th level of our soul. We have 5 levels of our soul, as we're taught. We have our nefesh, which is our physical animal action in this world. Then we have our ruach, which is our emotional world, as I understand it. Then we have our neshama, which is going up a level, and that's our wisdom. And then we sort of leave our body, so to speak, in an allegorical sense, and we're up into the level of chaya. And after chaya, we have yichida. Now, yichida is the aspect of our soul that is totally one with Hashem. And so what we learn by seeing that this is the 5th month, that in this month we have the potential and the ability to totally connect with Source. Now, I mentioned in the Tammuz class that we've started this process of tshuva that's leading us up to Rosh Hashanah. And in Tammuz, we've been working on our jealousy, trying to really use our sight to see what's really going on at the core of that jealousy. Is there something that's actually really destined for me in the thing that I'm jealous of? So we've been trying to kind of reroute that jealousy back to its source. And in this month of Av, well, month starting tomorrow night, we are going to be bringing healing to our desire. And so we're really wanting to elevate our desires and channel them in as healthy a way as possible. Now, if we look at, what should we do first? Let's see. We'll look at the permutation of Hashem's name, because Sefer Yetzirah, and I believe the Zohar teaches us that each month was created, so to speak, through the four-letter name of Hashem, configured each month in a different way. And so this month, we see something really interesting. We see that the half of, well, let me tell you the order first. So we have a Hey, and then we have a Vav, and then we have a Yud and a Hey. So we can see that the first two letters, Hey and Vav, are actually the last two letters, but turned around. And as we know, if things are in reverse order, it alludes to Din. And so we know that the first half of this month is a time of Din. The second letters, the Yud and the Hey, are the first two letters of Hashem's name in their perfect order. And when things are in their correct order, that tells us that there's a lot of divine compassion. And so what we see here is that at the first half of the month, it is a time of Din. And in the second half of the month, it's a time of compassion. We're going to see this duality a lot this month, because if we look at the month itself, we know that we have two major holidays, Chagim, or very important days, and they are stark opposites, or at least so they seem. We have Tisha B'Av, which is known to be the darkest day of our calendar, arguably. And we also have Tu B'Av, which the Talmud tells us that there's never a day that has so much joy as Tu B'Av, which we're going to go a bit more into that a bit later. So I'm going to press pause on those two ideas and come back to the permutation of Hashem's name. And if we were to read the name in its order for the month of Av, there's different ways to read it. First of all, let's look at the very literal reading, which is Havaya. That is the present tense of being. And what that's telling us that this is a month for being present, for being totally present. We know, as we talked a lot during the Tammuz class, and as Malkasima also explored a lot with her partner, with the guest speaker, was that there's a lot of constriction and concealment and pain and suffering and really intense times that have been present throughout Tammuz and that will be present in the first of Av. And so we're not called to move or run away from this. We're really, really being called to be present with it. And as we know, when we try and get into the mode of chash, the mode of silence, the mode of really being totally present with what is, this is a mode of being that we're striving to access in this month. So we have to be very present. Now, as we know, when we've got the letters in the right order, as we said, it's also a time of divine compassion. And what this teaches us is that within this afuch, within this din, within this constriction and this concealment, there is actually a lot of compassion available and present. And when we're present with our pain and the pain of others, then really that's the first step in transforming it. That's first step in being able to be compassionate. And I think something that we just so need in these days in our own lives and also the world at large is compassion. So much compassion for ourselves. And to be honest, it's been hard for me to get to a compassionate place. I've been very irritable and short-tempered, but not. And then I'm remembering, wait, stop. Let's listen deeper and try and be compassionate. And listening is the hush of the month of Av. It is the sense that we bring healing to, and it's the sense that brings us healing. One more thing I want to say about the permutation of Hashem's name, there's actually two opinions, because there's usually a Torah verse that corresponds to the permutation of Hashem's name. And there's actually two verses. So there's one that's brought down in the Zohar, and then there's also one that's brought down in the Mishnah Chasidim. And the one in the Mishnah Chasidim is Hashkes Ushema Yisrael Hayom. Keep silent and hear. And this is really giving us such a clue or an access point of how to move through this month of Av. We have to try to stay silent and listen. Really, really listen. Now, there's so many different kinds of listening that we engage in our day-to-day, right? As thank Baruch Hashem, as a mother of small children, I have a lot of noise coming with me a lot of time, and I've actually perfected like not listening in some way, or pretend listening, passive listening. And so this month we're really we're being asked to pay attention to how are we listening? How are we listening to the other? How are we listening to ourselves? And it's very interesting to pay attention to. And I think I remember so early on in my growth tshuva journey, somebody mentioned to me this idea of active listening, and of how most of the time we are not active listening. Most of the time when we're in conversation in a non-conscious way, we're actually just waiting to speak. I mean, I know that was definitely mine. I was like already thinking, well, what I'm going to say, what am I? And so there's really been such a change for me as I've tried to step into this place of really being present, really listening to what is being said to me. And so one of the things that we're really challenged to do this month, and we're really invited to do, is to, yes, listen to the other, yes, listen to ourselves, but also listen to Hashem communicating to us through the people and the events in our life. And this month, we really have this ability to be able to access this in a very clear, profound, and helpful way. So I wanna share with you something that I just read the other day that is so beautiful about how to connect our listening to the different levels of our soul that I mentioned to you just a bit earlier, and how, as we said, there's the 5 levels of our soul. And so if we really want to try and listen to Hashem, how do we do that? Obviously, this is a practice and it's a process. And as listening is a process. It's not like sight in Tammuz, where sight is our kind of broadest sense. We take one look and we can get a huge catchment of information through our sight. Whereas with our listening, it's really a case of bit by bit by bit, and then everything sort of comes together. And that's also something that we're really experiencing in Av as we're transitioning from this time and space of suffering and darkness and perceived separation, and moving into a more compassionate, whole, peaceful, and unified reality. This is the journey that we're on. And so it makes sense that we're going to be using our listening to piece by piece take us from throughout that journey. So how do we listen to Hashem? I'm sure this is like a lifetime worth of avodah. Okay? But these are 5 ways that I found really inspiring, and I hope to be working on over this next month. First and foremost, as we've mentioned, we've got to be present. We have to bring our attention into the moment, invite ourselves here, and open our hearts. We have to open our hearts and be willing to listen to the other, be willing to make more space, kind of move our ego a little bit or a lot out the way. And then when we're really in this present, open-hearted space, then we're really willing and able to sense the godliness and the vekas, the connection with the divine that really is alive and present in every single moment, right? We know Einod milvado. Hashem is with us always. Our entire life is a conversation with God. But the question is, are we with him? And so if we want to get into that space of really active listening and receiving these messages and being in a conscious dialogue, here are 5 ways. So first and foremost, we start with the nefesh level. And the nefesh level, we want to be listening to what I'm hearing is Hashem's words calling me into action. What's the action? What do I need to be doing? And as we saw with the hay in the last place of Hashem's permutation, that is resembles or is connected to the world of Asiyah. So we know there's a lot of action needed in Av. This is not a month to be passive. This is a month of doing. And so what's Hashem wanting me to do? Let's look for what we can do. And the next level is our ruach. And here we want to try and tune in to like, what is the positive emotion that Hashem is trying to arouse in me? Now, what might come up first in this month is some negative emotions. We're going to talk about the tribe of Shimon, which is the tribe of this month. And we know that Shimon, together with his brother Levi, acted to some extent very impulsively from a very emotional, zealous place. And so there might be the hard emotions that are there, but can we be with those in that place of chash? And can we open to tuning in to what a positive emotion could be? Let's go up next to the level of neshama. And the neshama is, can we tune in to the wisdom that Hashem's trying to teach us? Can we hear something that we really need to hear right now? Can we be willing to hear what we need to hear right now? It's not always easy. May we be blessed to be able to do that. Then we got up to the level of Chaya. And Chaya, we really want to try and tune into the divine life force, to the sense of this desire to unify with Hashem's will. And then the final level, as we discussed, is Yichida. And at Yichida, well, that is the level where we're really seeing how Hashem is speaking through us and using our words to communicate his will. Which is actually really interesting because we're just about to start a new book in the Torah, the book of Devarim, which is Moshe speaking to us about our journeys and everything that we've been through since leaving Egypt. And there's some rebukes in there are some constructive criticism. And so what we are seeing here in the Torah is this example where, actually I think there's a lot of times where Moshe uses a personal approach. Rather than saying Hashem has told me this, he's speaking from that place of I, and that this is this place where he's really channeling Hashem's wisdom and Hashem's message to us as we're at this critical stage of our journey when we're about to enter the land. And something that we can notice is inside that constructive criticism and the rebuke, there is wisdom for us to hear, very important wisdom that not just the people in that time waiting to cross the border needed to hear, but also us today in 2023 are also needing to hear. And I guess that takes us nicely onto the name of the month. The name of the month, as we know, it's Av. It's actually often referred to as Menachem Av, because Menachem means to console and to comfort. And so we're looking at Hashem as a father. The word Av is father. And also we have Aleph and Bet right next to each other, which are in the correct sequence as they are in the alphabet, which again emphasizes this quality of compassion that is very, very present this month. And it's telling us, Menachem Av, that Hashem is here with us in this month to console us, and to comfort us and to be with us as we move through this more challenging process. Right, the beginning half of the month, you know, I actually heard a beautiful thing. Like, when do you see that a father is really compassionate? Can you see it when he's interacting and relating to his very perfect child, who everyone loves and never does anything wrong and always knows what to say and does what he's told and behaves beautifully in public? And no, not really. We see a compassionate father when they're interacting with a child who perhaps isn't behaving how the father wants them to or expects them to, or how society needs them to, but actually is able to be compassionate with them in their most challenging places and spaces and behavior, when the child's not listening, when the child is being disrespectful and obnoxious, and should we think of many other adjectives. But when a father is able to see through that, not see past it and ignore it, but to see really what's going on within that. You know, I actually heard they say that, you know, as Mashiach gets closer, children are going to disrespect their parents. Now, I remember when I heard that and I thought, I wasn't a parent yet. I thought, oh, things are going to be so bad. I mean, I obviously had total amnesia about my whole teenage years, but I was like, things will be so bad that children will be just their parents. And then I just became a parent and obviously remembered my teenage years, and even sometimes how I speak to my parents now as a grown woman. I'm sorry, mum and dad. As a parent, I had this realization that, wow, that Mashiach will be coming when children are so disrespectful to the parents, and the parents don't take it personally. The parents can actually see that their child's in pain, that something's hard for their child, that the child's going through something difficult, and that's why they're behaving in a misaligned and perhaps disrespectful way. And I think that this just really expands our perception, and we fine-tune our listening, and we see, you know, I have a friend who's a psychologist, and she says to her kids, there's no such thing as a bad person. There are mad people. People get upset and angry because really inside we're hurting. And so in this first month of Av, 1 second, speaking of wonderful children, can you take that upstairs, please? When we are in the first month of Av, we're in pain, we're upset, we're angry. Things are not going as we were expecting, or things don't feel good. Either I don't feel good about myself, or things are happening in our lives that are not good. And really, Hashem is with us there. So I'm with you. I see your pain. I know your pain. And I feel your pain too. And that, you know, Sari Hadi in her workshop, Prayer and Destiny, introduced me to this concept in such a deep, profound, and real way, that with whatever it is that we want, Hashem wants even more for us. Whatever pain we're feeling, Hashem's feeling it even more for us. And so we can know in our pain and our suffering and in those harder times that Hashem is with us and feeling it, and he is a loving and compassionate parent who is there and guiding us. And that this, in fact, these challenges and these difficulties that we have are really here to show us our strengths, to help us understand who we are and what we want and what we're here for. And so this is really one of the deeper messages of Av, and this is really one of the deeper and more profound understandings of why is there suffering in the world. And I'm not here to answer that question. It's such a deep, difficult question. But Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs says, you know, there's no answer to that question. There can't be an answer, and there mustn't be an answer, because we can't accept that there's things going wrong in the world. We can't accept injustices in the world. And part of what we're here to do is to be spurred into action to right those wrongs. And so the challenge and the separation, the darkness of that first half of the month is there specifically in order to propel us forward to seek and to yearn, most specifically, for justice and wholeness and peace. And that's the process that we're in, and this is the process that Av is really taking us on in a very profound way. So whilst on the surface, yes, this is a very hard time in our history. Countless awful things have happened to the Jewish people in the month of Av, specifically on the 9th of Av, and none more catastrophic and devastating than the destruction of the first and the second Beit HaMikdash. And so why did it all happen? I mean, I'm not going to be able to answer that, obviously, but some things that we've learned, you know, if we really want to understand the energetic root of a day, we go to the Torah and we see what happened on that day. And so as we know, on the 9th of Av, that was the day that the Meraglim, that we know them as spies, but we mustn't forget that these were 12 princes. These were 12 exceptionally great men, leaders of tribes, who returned from looking and scouting out the land. And they returned with reports. And 10 of those 12 had what we believe to be more, or what we heard to be, negative reports. And what was the big sin? Like, where did we really miss the mark? Where did we go wrong? We listened and we heard what I don't know if it's what we wanted to hear, but we heard whatever our inner story and our inner doubts and our inner victim narrative perceived them to be saying. We were like grasshoppers in their eyes. We can't do this. They're giants. We're not ready. And we listened. And not only did we listen, but we cried and we had tears and there was drama and hysteria. And before we knew it, that was what was being felt and experienced, this feeling of devastation and this sense of futility. These were futile tears. And as such, we kind of created this imprint, which has had repercussions to this very day. So the 9th of Av, the 9 days. If we look at actually the letter, let's just take a minute. Let's take a minute with that story and with that experience, and also with the truth that in these 9 days, we are really being called to be present with the pain and suffering of the world. Because as much as we can say, Eino Milvado, and all one, the reality is in our day-to-day lives, pain is incredibly painful and the suffering is incredibly real. And the destruction and the devastation and the challenges that humanity faces in the world today is devastating. The state of the world, it really is. And I think that it's important, and we're really being called to be present with that in this time. But as we've mentioned in the other classes, we also mustn't over-identify. And just as in the desert, we mustn't panic, get into a state of hopelessness and despair. But we are meant to be there with those hard feelings. So I think I just want to take a moment to really sit with that. And perhaps we can, I mean, I'm sure we all have many challenges in our own lives or in the lives of our friends and families and communities and the world at large. So I want to invite us to just go there for a moment and really be with that pain and sadness and be with that challenge. So I'm going to invite everyone to just close your eyes. Take some deep breaths. Land in our body. Just feel that heaviness and that sadness, the challenge, the pain, the trauma, suffering, the devastation. When you can put your right hand on your heart. And I want to invite you for the next minute to enter into a yearning and hopeful prayer with the vision of the hopeful future, of the Yeshua, of the Geula, fixing we're just going to tune into the truth that the yearning and the hope and the prayer is what creates the bridge between this place of suffering and brokenness and the ultimate reality of wholeness, unity, peace. When you're ready, I invite you to come back. Move your body. You won't put your hands over your eyes. So this is really the journey that Av takes us on. Takes us from a place of separation in order for us to feel the pain of separation, in order for us to be with those feelings, not run away from them. This is a month to feel your feelings. Again, we don't want to over-identify. We don't want to think that we are our emotions and that it defines us and it's who we are. No, we're human. These emotions, have you ever heard of the emotions are energy in motion? Energy in motion. Emotions need to be felt in order to be able to move on. So this is really a month where we need to feel what we're feeling. Life is hard and painful. It is. Can't ignore that. But we also don't want to live there. We don't need to live there. From that place, we can pray and we can hope and we can yearn and we can visualize. And so, just as we said at the beginning, at the beginning of the month, we have this incredibly dense, dark, and devastating day of destruction that is the lowest that we've ever fallen in our history. And then what comes after is Tu B'Av, on the full moon, when the energy is at her fullest. We have this day of the greatest joy. And so because we journey into the 9th of Av, and because we open to that experience, it allows us to take the light that's hidden in that experience and bring it out in a revealed way on Tu B'Av. Tu B'Av, we're told in the Talmud, was a day when all the single young women or single women would come out into the fields. They would wear each other's dresses, and they would sing to the men, "Lift up your eyes and see." And so these men, first and foremost, they would hear, they'd listen, they wouldn't see anyone. They'd listen, and then they would lift up their eyes and see. Something that's so beautiful in this story, apart from the fact that, they were about looking for spouses, and we know that, like with marriage, it's the unification of the male and the female, and we know, as we talked about Tammuz, the energy of Tammuz is the moon, which is the feminine, and now we're in Av, which is the father, and it's the masculine, and it's the son. And so we have this healing of these two energies, and this coming together, and this peaceful unification. And so on Tu B'Av, it's the women who were doing the calling. Now we know that the women were not involved in the missing the mark of Tisha B'Av. The women didn't listen to the stories. The women also weren't involved in Chet Egel. And we know that the women in our story were always known to be the hopeful ones, the ones who don't give up hope. We took those bronze mirrors and we beautified ourselves, and we said to our husbands, "Don't give up. Don't give up. Hashem is with us. We are in process. Let's keep moving. Let's keep going. There is the future. There's change. There's possibility. There's newness." And part of the gift that we have as women is to bring this message to the world. Men find it hard to let go of the past. Women want to move forward into the future. And so in this month of Av, let's talk about the letter of the month of Av, because we have a lot of wisdom with the letter Tet. Tet is the letter of this month. Interestingly enough, Tet is a letter that appears the least in the Torah. And also on the Luchot, the first set of Luchot, there was no Tet. And we know the first time we see the letter Tet, it's with the word Tov. We talked about this also last month in Tammuz. And so the letter Tet, if we look at the shape of it, I'm assuming we all know the shape. There are some sources that say it's a Pei and a Zayin together, which spells paths, and that's a very, very deep mystical concept, which I'm not going to go into now. But the Tet itself, it has one edge that turns in on itself, and so there's this little, right? It's an inward letter, and it's going inwards. And so the Tet resembles hidden good, concealed good, and it's also, if you look at the shape of the Tet, you can see it also looks a little bit like a womb. And it's interesting to note that the equivalent number of Tet is a 9. And obviously, we have the 9 months of pregnancy. And when a woman is pregnant, she has this concealed good within her. It's concealed life, concealed divinity. And something else that's beautiful about the number 9 that actually my son taught me, and I think it was one of my mum's friends that taught my son, apart from the fact that it being the gematria of the word emet, truth, it's a number that is always true to itself. So what do I mean? If you take any number and you divide it by 9, and you get the sum of the equation. So let's say, for example, we take the number 9 and we times it by 3, we get 27. And if you add 2 and 7, you get 9. So 9 is always becoming itself. it's a very, very high number. And we know we've talked a lot about how 7 is Shabbos, perfection in nature, 8 is beyond, and then 9 is this unification. And if we think about the Beis Hamikdash and what that was in the world, it was a place, a physical structure on this earth where the spiritual truth of divinity could be felt, it existed, it could be interacted with in a very real way. So the Beis Hamikdash was this place that unified the physical and the spiritual. And so when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Hashem lost his home, the Shekhinah lost her home. And in that time, we're experiencing the great sadness of that. However, as we're learning, this destruction was a necessary part of the process so that the third Beis Hamikdash can be built. So in order for this new paradigm to come into our world, we've had to get rid of the old paradigm. And so the old paradigm, the old yesh, had to be removed so that there was an ayin, there was nothingness, in order so that a new yesh can come in. And this is really the model of what is happening cosmically, spiritually during Av, is that we have this breaking down, destruction, in order to vacate a space, in order to create something new. And so we can experience this on a very personal level, we can experience it on a collective level, that this is the process that we are constantly in. Death births new life. I mean, we just have to look at birth to really understand that all of nature is a metaphor, it reflects spiritual truths. If somebody didn't know what was happening in birth, you would really think, there's blood and death and screaming and a new baby's born, a whole new life, a whole new world, a whole new consciousness, new possibility and new potential. And this is the process that we're in. Please God, we really should be blessed to see this process come to its fullness. And, we're taught that Mashiach is born in Av, on the 9th of Av. And so we know that on this very, very dark day, this potential for newness is born. Now, there are some that say it's meant in a literal sense. There are some that say it's meant in a spiritual sense. And the sense that I really connect with it is that, we all have a spark of Mashiach within us. And that spark is reignited on Tisha B'Av. That potential that we have within to become our own Mashiach, to create our own Geula, to become leaders in our own lives. The mazal of this month is Aryeh, it's the lion. And those who are Leos have this enormous potential with their fiery passion. It's a fire sign, right? We know fire can be illuminating and it can create new life. And there was a story I heard about, from Shimona Sukernik, who there was a great fire in Australia, and what came after this fire, this whole forest was destroyed and decimated. But what followed it was the most luscious forest that had become nourished from the nutrients of the ashes. And so we see that we have this potential this month to really take that passion, to take that fire, and as the Leo and the lion, to be the king of our jungle, to be our own leaders, to be courageous, to use our listening, to tune in to the divinity in another, to the divine message of the stories of our lives, and to really use that to be able to inspire us and motivate us and energize us to really step into our lives, step into our purpose, and to be doing everything that we're meant to be doing here on earth. So we should really be blessed to do that, to feel it in such a real way, and to just trust the process, really, to trust the process. Hashem's with us every single step of the way, and none of it's wasted, or none of it's coincidence. It's all intentional, and everything is here to help us discover who we are, how strong we are, how capable we are, and what we can really achieve in this world. And we're builders, we're here, we're building, we're creating, and please God, we should really see the completion of the ultimate building of this ultimate home, house of love and prayer for all the peoples of the world. B'ezrat Hashem. May it be soon, and may it be in our days. L'chaim l'chaim, ken yhi ratzon. So, I'm going to open up to see if anyone has any questions. And, well, if anyone has any comments or questions, feel free.
I have
Yes,
something.
Marcusima.
Yeah, just something kind of came in a deeper way as you were talking, of listening to the other and making space, that a way of cultivating compassion. And in Hebrew, the word rachamim, rechem, and then you brought it together with the text and the 9 months. So this way where a rechem woman has to make space, make space for an other, and that's rachamim. And so it just came in really strongly when you spoke about stepping back and listening, really listening to what the other, just that, this energy of kind of being with the other person, just listening, or with ourselves, and making space for them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such an avodah, and it's such a beautiful process to engage in. Transcendental listening, it's called, technically speaking. Yeah, wow. It's such a beautiful, just really, really being so present that we can really, really receive what the other person's saying beyond who we perceive them to be and the stories that we think we know about them. And actually, it really leads me to a very important thing to avoid this month. We mustn't judge. It's not a month for judgment. We have to really try so hard to not judge ourselves and to not judge others, and to really be there with so much compassion. Yeah. No lashon hara. I'm saying it to myself, but it's really, yeah. Does anyone else have any questions or anything they'd like to share? Hi, Mum.
I'd like to say something.
Oh, I'd love to hear. Oh, wait.
I have this aunt.
Oh, Heidi.
Yeah.
Hey, Heidi.
Yeah, somebody else speaking? Because I'll wait.
No, I think you go first, and then Sarah can speak after.
Okay. I had this aunt who was in the Holocaust as a young woman, survived with very little family. And one thing that, as I was growing up, that I witnessed is how she brought you into her room. She never once looked at a clock or what was cooking in the kitchen or anything else in the house, because her eyes were on your eyes and you felt always her presence. And she used to say, I invite you to be with me and for me to be with you. And I never experienced that before with anyone else, where I was so present and felt like so loved at the same time, like I should be there, to be there. And what you said today was just like right on that.
Beautiful. Yeah, you know,
Eye to eye.
it's something that's on one hand so simple, and on the other hand so complex and challenging. And you know, it's like this whole movement of mindfulness, just being present, noticing what's going on around you, you know, and it's it, the fact that it's such a popular movement shows chaser, how much has been lacking. And really this lack is such a theme this month, the beginning of the month, you know, like where we're lacking, and we have to be really honest with ourselves, and not in a judgmental way. Like, it's okay, we're human. It's normal to be in our monkey mind and thinking all the time and questions and this and stories and this. But really, for so long we've been lacking this ability to just be present, to not have our mind race, you know, to learn. So we have to relearn, how do I get to that silent space within? And it's not easy for so many of us, but it's so healing. You can do it. And I think something that just came from your share, it helps us feel so seen, that, you know,
Yes.
us and the other, and it really brings our life experience, it amplifies it in such a real and meaningful way. You know, just being able to take everything in, and feel seen and heard by someone else and ourselves. It's a beautiful thing, deeply healing. Thank you for sharing. Sounds like a very special
Thank you.
lady.
Yes.
I had the same sense, Heidi, and what Chana is saying, that it was something of a life, like that was her connection. She didn't take it for granted. And our relationships, they're so important. They're light. It's really the what we're going for, achdut, and coming beyond ourselves, and making the space for another, and connecting, where my malchut connects to yours, where the vessel just gets bigger and bigger. And yeah, I just got such a sense of her honoring life. Yeah, beautiful.
Beautiful. Hey, Sarah.
This Sarah, me?
Oh, yes.
Hi. As you just thank you, just beautiful Torah. So two things that came to mind, which is lovely. This lady who just spoke to, just when you're able to just silence yourself and listen to another, or listen to yourself, it's such a feeling of being witnessed. And there's just nothing more precious, like when you just feel that someone really can see you. And it's such a hard avoda. I mean, it's just so hard. I'm just thinking like how I relate to my kids, like, oh, I really need to work on that. And the other thing which I loved what you said was when you said that to see the spark of Mashiach in you said like in yourself, which I just never thought about that. And that is so beautiful, because I just thought it's such a beautiful segue to the month of Elul, right? You said like to tune into your divinity and step into your own purpose. And it's just like so beautiful how you've brought like just the cycle of time, and how we're moving through a process from Tammuz to Av and then into Elul. I just thought it was so beautiful. So thank you for that.
Baruch Hashem. This class was not me, I assure you. Yeah, thank God. Right, Elul, that's the work we start to do. Nachon. Yeah, it's just once you're conscious of that journey that we're on, it really holds us, and it really guides us in such a clear way. I think in a world of so much information and of so many choices, when we're working with the Hebrew calendar, it gives us such clear focus. Like, where do I need to be putting my energy now? What do I need to be thinking about now? What, you know, it's just, I mean, it's a lifeline for me. It really is. It really is. I don't always, you know, making many mistakes, obviously, but we're all in process. We're all in process. Oh, does anyone have anyone else? No. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I really wish you all a Chodesh Tov. It should be it should be a good month. It should be, we should just let it be whatever it is and trust that it will unfold as we need to, and we should be able to really be with that chosel, with that lack, in a really compassionate way, and from that lack really be able to just bring the greatest light and the greatest joy and the greatest sense of purpose into our day-to-day nitty-gritty interactions and life. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Hannah Vered.
Simcha
Thank you
rabba.
so much. It was wonderful. Very
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.